There comes a moment in every life when the truth stands quietly before us, unyielding, undeniable. Poverty is not merely a lack of money. It is a labyrinth of habits, fears, and inherited beliefs that quietly shape our days. Some are born into it, some fall into it, but all who face it share one universal truth. The climb out begins not with a miracle, but with a decision. A decision to look beyond the circumstances, beyond the doubt, and into the possibility of who we might yet become. The invisible chains of habit. There is a quiet force that shapes the course of a person's life, stronger than circumstance, deeper than intention, and often hidden from view. That force is habit. It moves like an undercurrent beneath our thoughts and decisions, guiding us toward familiar choices long before we consciously make them. For those living in poverty, these habits can become invisible chains, binding them to cycles that feel impossible to break. Not because they lack intelligence or strength, but because they have been conditioned, often since childhood, to move in patterns that were never designed to lead upward. Poverty is rarely a single event. It is the result of repeated, reinforced behaviors. These behaviors can feel normal, even logical, when you're surrounded by them every day. A person may spend impulsively because they have never seen long-term planning modeled. They may fear opportunities because every attempt to reach higher has historically been met with disappointment. They may choose comfort over courage because risk has always seemed like a luxury reserved for others. None of this happens consciously. It unfolds in the quiet repetition of daily life, where actions become habits and habits become identity. The first challenge is recognizing the chain at all. You cannot break what you cannot see. Many people grow up believing their habits are simply the way life is. They watch their parents work endlessly but never get ahead. They observe their community accept struggle as inevitable. Over time, these impressions embed themselves, forming a blueprint for how to think, how to act, and even how to dream. And yet, inside every person, there is a moment, sometimes small, sometimes earth-shaking, when they sense the truth. Their habits are not destiny. They are inherited patterns that can be rewritten, but to rewrite them requires a kind of honesty that is often uncomfortable. You must look at yourself without flinching, without excuses, and ask, what am I doing each day that keeps me where I am? This question is powerful because it shifts the focus from blame to transformation. Blame keeps us immobilized. Transformation begins with responsibility, not the heavy kind that punishes, but the empowering kind that awakens. Responsibility says, if my habits are part of the problem, they can also be part of the solution. In that single shift, a person reclaims their agency. They begin to see each action, no matter how small, as a thread pulling them either deeper into the cycle or away from it. Consider the habit of immediate gratification. When resources are scarce, it's natural to seize any moment of relief. A meal out, a small purchase, a fleeting comfort. These moments feel like survival, but in the long run, they often strengthen the chains. The alternative, delayed gratification, is painful at first. It requires watching others enjoy what you're denying yourself. It demands discipline in moments when discipline feels almost cruel. But every time you choose patience over impulse, you file away a new pattern, one that shifts the mind from short-term survival to long-term growth. That shift is monumental. It turns a person from a reactor into a creator. Another powerful habit is the habit of self-belief, or its absence. Many people trapped in poverty have internalized the idea that success belongs to someone else. They fear taking risks because they fear failing. They fear failing because they fear confirming what they were told, that they are not meant for more. This is one of the most stubborn chains because it does not exist in action. It exists in identity. To break it requires nurturing a new belief, one small step at a time. It begins with educating oneself, exploring new environments, reading stories of people who rose above similar circumstances. It grows when a person sees even the smallest proof that they can follow through, improve, or learn. That is why progress feels slow at first. You are not just changing habits, you are changing the story you tell yourself. Environment 2 reinforces habits. Humans mirror what they see. If you grow up surrounded by scarcity thinking, it becomes the lens through which you interpret every decision. But if you place yourself, even briefly, in environments where ambition, discipline, and vision are normal, your habits begin to shift. You start adopting the mental patterns of those who think differently. This does not require wealth, it requires exposure. Books, mentors, community groups, educational spaces, or even online resources where new ideas flourish. The moment a person sees a new way of living, their old habits lose some of their power. Breaking the invisible chains of habit is not a single act, but a process. A slow, deliberate reshaping of one's daily life. It involves choosing routines that reflect the future you want, not the past you came from. It involves pausing before impulse, questioning before acting, and imagining before doubting. Most importantly, it involves consistency. A single good decision changes little. 1,000 small ones made over months and years can rebuild an entire life. And so, the truth emerges. Poverty may begin in circumstance, but it stays alive in habit. Yet these habits are not permanent. They are not unbreakable. They can be challenged, reshaped, and replaced by new patterns that carry a person toward stability, opportunity, and growth. The chains may be invisible, but the key is always within reach. It lies in awareness, discipline, and the courage to step again and again into the unfamiliar. for it is there, in the unfamiliar, that freedom begins. The power of awareness. Awareness is the quiet turning point in every human story. It is not loud, not dramatic, and often not recognized in the moment it arrives. Yet it is the spark that begins every transformation, especially for those striving to escape poverty. People often imagine change as a sudden breakthrough, an unexpected opportunity, a stroke of luck, a moment of rescue. But genuine, sustainable change begins long before any of that. It begins the moment a person becomes aware of the patterns shaping their life, the forces guiding their choices, and the unseen beliefs driving their behavior. Awareness is the lens through which the blurry becomes clear, the overwhelming becomes manageable, and the impossible begins to look achievable. Poverty can create a fog that clouds judgment and narrows vision. When you are constantly worried about surviving today, it becomes nearly impossible to imagine tomorrow. Problems pile up until they feel like a single heavy weight, impossible to lift. But awareness breaks that weight apart. It allows a person to see their circumstances not as one massive, unchangeable reality, but as a series of interconnected pieces that can be understood and eventually changed. When someone becomes aware of what is holding them back, they take their first step toward reclaiming their power. They start to see that poverty is not just a lack of money, but a lack of information, clarity, and perspective. And once clarity begins to form, even the darkest situations begin to shift. Awareness often starts with simple questions. Why am I making this choice? What pattern keeps repeating in my life? Is this decision helping me grow or keeping me in place? These questions may seem small, but they cut through the fog like a sharp beam of light. They interrupt autopilot living, the kind where people react instead of choose, survive instead of build, and follow instead of lead. Asking questions creates a moment of pause, and in that pause, the mind begins to wake up. A person who was once moving through life unconsciously becomes an observer of their own journey. That shift alone is powerful. It creates distance between the individual and their habits, allowing them to step outside the pattern long enough to see it. But awareness is not only about recognizing habits, it's also about recognizing possibilities. Many people living in poverty have never been shown what is truly available to them. They may have been raised in environments where ambition was mocked, discouraged, or simply not modeled. Their dreams may feel unrealistic because they have never seen anyone achieve something beyond survival. Awareness opens a window to a larger world. It shows that what was once assumed to be normal is only one version of life, not the only version. This kind of awareness often comes from exposure, through books, mentors, educational content, or encounters with people who see the world differently. Suddenly, a person realizes that there are choices they never knew existed, paths they never knew they could walk, and strengths within themselves they never knew they possessed. Self-awareness is equally crucial. It allows individuals to confront truths they may have avoided, truths about fear, procrastination, limiting beliefs, or emotional wounds that shape their decisions. This is not easy work. It requires vulnerability, honesty, and the courage to examine one's inner world without judgment. But the reward is immense. When a person becomes aware of their emotional triggers, their destructive habits, their strengths, and their weaknesses, they begin to navigate life with intention rather than impulse. They stop repeating harmful cycles because they finally see the cycles clearly enough to step out of them. Another form of awareness is financial awareness. Many people remain in poverty not because they lack money, but because they lack understanding of how money truly works. They do not learn about budgeting, investing, or long-term planning from their environment. Awareness in this area can be life-changing. When someone tracks how they spend, where their money goes, and what behaviors drain their resources, they begin to take control. Financial awareness brings discipline, and discipline brings stability. The moment a person understands that every dollar has a direction, purposeful or wasteful, they start making decisions that build rather than erode their future. Yet awareness is not only internal. It also involves becoming aware of opportunities and resources that may have been overlooked. Many communities offer programs, education, mentorships, support groups, or financial tools that individuals simply never knew existed. Poverty often isolates people from information, making them believe that help is out of reach. But once awareness expands, a person starts to see openings where they once saw walls. They begin noticing possibilities in places that previously felt empty. This awareness encourages action, reaching out, asking questions, seeking guidance. And action is the bridge between awareness and transformation. The true power of awareness lies in its ability to shift identity. When someone sees themselves clearly, sees their potential, their obstacles, their patterns, they stop feeling powerless. They begin to believe that change is possible because they can finally see the steps leading to it. Awareness does not solve problems instantly, but it gives a person the map they need to escape the maze. It shows them where the dead ends are, where the doors are hidden, and where the path forward begins. In the end, awareness is the foundation of escape. Without it, change is accidental and temporary. With it, change becomes intentional, steady, and lasting. Awareness turns confusion into understanding, fear into strategy, and hope into action. It transforms a person from a passenger in their life into the pilot. And once someone gains that kind of clarity, no circumstance, not poverty, not past mistakes, not limiting beliefs, can hold them in place for long. Choosing discipline over despair. Discipline is often misunderstood. People imagine it as a strict, punishing force, something cold, rigid, or joyless. But in truth, discipline is one of the most compassionate acts a person can offer themselves. It is the quiet promise that no matter how difficult the present may be, the future will be better because they are building it one deliberate step at a time. For those trapped in the cycle of poverty, discipline is not merely a virtue, it is a lifeline. Where despair sees only barriers, discipline sees direction. Where despair drains strength, discipline cultivates it. And where despair whispers that nothing will ever change, discipline responds with steady, determined action. Living in poverty often makes despair feel natural. When you face continuous setbacks, limited options, and daily uncertainty, it's easy to believe that effort goes unnoticed, that hard work leads nowhere, and that life is controlled by forces far beyond your reach. Despair convinces a person to give up before they start. It hides solutions behind the illusion that they do not exist. But discipline reveals the truth. Improvement is built through consistency, not miracles. Even the smallest actions, repeated daily, begin to alter the trajectory of a person's life. The challenge is choosing discipline in moments when despair feels easier, more familiar, and less demanding. Discipline does not require perfection. It asks only for commitment, a commitment to growth, even if the steps are small. Too often, people believe they must overhaul their lives in one grand act, but real change starts in simple routines, waking up at the same time each day, setting aside a portion of income, even a tiny amount, spending an hour learning a new skill, preparing meals instead of buying impulsively. These acts may seem insignificant, but over time they build momentum. And momentum is more valuable than motivation. Motivation comes and goes with emotion. Discipline remains even when emotion fades. The true strength of discipline is its ability to shift internal identity. When you act with discipline, you begin to see yourself as capable, reliable, and worthy of progress. You start trusting your own decisions. This shift is powerful because poverty often damages self-belief. It convinces people that they cannot change their circumstances, so they stop trying. But each disciplined action is a small rebellion against that belief. Each completed routine is a message. I am not defined by my situation. I can shape my life. This sense of agency is the antidote to despair. Financial discipline, in particular, plays a crucial role in escaping poverty. This does not mean depriving oneself of all comfort, but rather learning to direct money with intention. Poverty often forces people into reactive spending, paying bills last minute, buying cheap instead of durable, or chasing small comforts to escape stress. Discipline transforms these patterns. It begins with tracking expenses, understanding where resources go, and making deliberate choices. Saving even a small amount consistently changes how a person views their future. It transforms money from a source of anxiety into a tool for opportunity. And when someone realizes they can control their finances, even in a small way, their confidence grows. That confidence becomes fuel. But discipline extends far beyond money. Emotional discipline is equally vital. It means managing reactions instead of being controlled by them. It means learning to pause before acting, breathe before deciding, and reflect before reacting. Emotional discipline creates stability, a sense of calm amid chaos. Poverty often comes with stress, frustration, and tension. Without emotional discipline, these feelings can lead to destructive choices. But with emotional discipline, a person learns to navigate challenges with clarity, patience, and strength. This inner stability helps them stay focused on long-term goals rather than being pulled into short-term emotions. Another part of discipline is consistency in learning. Information is one of the greatest equalizers in the world. The more a person learns about finances, skills, mindset, health, or opportunities, the more they expand the range of choices available to them. But learning requires discipline. The discipline to read, to listen, to seek guidance, to ask questions, and to keep going even when progress feels slow. Poverty often teaches people to underestimate themselves, but learning dismantles that illusion. Every new piece of knowledge becomes a stepping stone out of the cycle. And then there is the discipline of staying focused. In a world full of distractions, this may be the hardest discipline of all. Poverty can make life chaotic, pulling attention in 100 directions at once. But discipline helps a person prioritize. It teaches them to focus on what matters most, even if everything feels urgent. It teaches them that not every battle deserves their energy. When a person focuses their effort on their long-term goals, improving skills, managing money, nurturing health, strengthening relationships, they begin to see progress where there was once stagnation. Choosing discipline over despair is not a one-time decision. It's a daily practice, a commitment renewed again and again. Some days will be difficult, some days discipline will feel heavy, but each day it is chosen, the chains of poverty loosen a little more. Discipline creates structure where there was once chaos. It creates hope where there was once hopelessness. It builds resilience, confidence, and momentum. It transforms a person from someone reacting to life into someone directing it. In the end, discipline is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. Despair leads nowhere. But discipline, steady, unwavering, humble discipline, leads upward. It may be slow, it may be quiet, but it is unstoppable. And for anyone seeking to rise out of hardship, discipline is not just a tool, it is the path. The courage to reimagine yourself. Every journey out of hardship begins with a single profound act, the willingness to reimagine who you are. Not who the world has told you to be, not who your circumstances suggest you must remain, but who you could become if you dared to rewrite your story. For many living in poverty, the greatest barrier is not lack of resources. It is the belief that a different version of themselves is out of reach. Reimagining oneself requires courage. It demands stepping away from familiar identities, familiar fears, and familiar limitations. It asks a person to walk toward a future they cannot yet see, guided only by a quiet conviction that something more is possible. The challenge begins with confronting the identity shaped by years of struggle. Poverty carves deep impressions into the mind. It whispers that life will always be this way, that change is a fantasy, that dreams are for others. These messages become internalized, forming a version of the self that feels small, restricted, and powerless. This identity is not chosen. It is inherited from circumstances, upbringing, and constant survival mode thinking. To rise, one must recognize that who they are today is not the final version of themselves. It's just the starting chapter. The courage to reimagine begins when you look at your current identity and say, "This is not the whole story. This is just where I begin." Reimagination requires questioning the beliefs that have shaped your life. Beliefs about what you can achieve, beliefs about what you deserve, beliefs about what is possible. These beliefs often go unchallenged because they feel like truth. But in reality, they are simply repeated messages absorbed over time. The moment you question them, you create space for a new identity to grow. You ask yourself, what if I am capable of more? What if I do have strengths I've never explored? What if I can build a life beyond what I've known? These questions are powerful. They ignite a mental shift. They move your identity from fixed to flexible, from limited to expansive. Part of reimagining yourself involves exploring new environments. You cannot create a new identity surrounded only by old influences. If everyone around you believes that progress is impossible, their mindset becomes the cage you live in. But when you expose yourself, even briefly, to people, ideas, and environments that think differently, something awakens inside you. You realize that the world is much bigger than the one you grew up in. You see people who came from the same struggles but rose above them. You learn new ways of thinking, new habits, new possibilities. Exposure expands identity. It shows you versions of life you never knew existed, and in seeing them, you begin to imagine yourself living them. Yet, reimagination is not only external, it is deeply internal. You must examine the parts of yourself you've neglected or doubted. Perhaps you are more creative than you ever allowed yourself to believe. Perhaps you have leadership qualities you never expressed. Perhaps you love learning but were never given the chance to pursue education. Poverty closes doors, but reimagination opens them, internally first, then outwardly. It encourages you to explore your untapped abilities, your hidden strengths, your dormant ambitions. These discoveries reshape identity, giving it new dimensions and new direction. Another essential part of reimagining yourself is letting go of the past, not erasing it, but releasing its control. Past failures, mistakes, and disappointments often become heavy anchors, convincing people they are unworthy of success. But reimagination requires forgiveness, forgiving yourself for what you didn't know, for the choices you made under pressure, for the times you acted out of fear. Forgiveness clears the path for growth. It allows you to move forward without dragging old burdens behind you. It frees your identity from being defined solely by survival and opens the door to being defined by purpose. To reimagine yourself is to embrace the future instead of clinging to the familiar. The familiar is comfortable, even when it hurts. Familiar patterns feel safe because they are known, even if they keep you stuck. But growth lives in the unfamiliar, in the risks, the new routines, the challenging goals, the uncertain steps. The courage to reimagine means embracing discomfort temporarily in exchange for freedom permanently. It means taking the first step even when you're not fully confident, trusting that confidence will grow along the way. This process also involves setting a vision, not a vague hope, but a clear picture of the life you want to build. A vision acts as a compass. It gives your actions purpose. It keeps you focused when challenges arise. Your vision could be stability, education, entrepreneurship, health, or simply peace. Whatever it is, the act of imagining it strengthens your identity. In that moment, you stop seeing yourself as someone reacting to life and start seeing yourself as someone creating it. A vision turns possibility into intention, and intention turns action into momentum. Ultimately, reimagining yourself is an act of self-respect. It is acknowledging that you deserve more than what your circumstances have offered. It is reclaiming your narrative. It is choosing to build an identity based on potential rather than limitation. It is the moment you say, I am more than what has happened to me. I am more than what I have been told. I am capable of becoming someone greater. For anyone trapped in poverty, the transformation begins here, with courage, imagination, and the willingness to believe in a new version of themselves. Circumstances may resist, doubt may return, fear may whisper, but once you have imagined a new identity, you step into a new kind of freedom, and from that freedom, every other change becomes possible. Seeking allies, not isolation. No person achieves lasting success entirely on their own. Human beings are inherently social creatures, and our connections shape our opportunities, decisions, and perspectives. For those struggling in poverty, isolation often becomes both a symptom and a trap. When resources are scarce, people retreat into themselves, believing that they must face life alone. They may hide their struggles, avoid seeking help, or distrust those who seem to offer guidance. But isolation, while instinctively protective, limits growth and keeps individuals confined within the narrow boundaries of their current circumstances. True progress emerges when a person recognizes the value of allies, people who encourage, challenge, and illuminate paths that would otherwise remain unseen. Seeking allies begins with understanding that no journey is meant to be undertaken in solitude. Life is complex and unpredictable, and every person faces obstacles that require more than individual effort to overcome. Allies provide support in many forms: emotional encouragement when despair looms, practical guidance when choices are unclear, knowledge when skills are lacking, and accountability when discipline falters. Poverty often teaches people to distrust the world, to expect rejection or disappointment, but this mindset can be quietly dismantled when one begins to build relationships with those who genuinely care. These allies do not carry the burden for you, but they help you carry it more wisely, strategically, and sustainably. One of the most profound ways allies aid growth is by expanding perspective. When a person is isolated, their view of the world is narrow, shaped only by immediate surroundings and personal experience. They may believe that opportunities are rare, that certain achievements are impossible, or that their circumstances are permanent. Allies provide an alternative view. They demonstrate, by example or advice, that change is possible. They introduce new ideas, tools, and strategies that were previously invisible. They ask questions that challenge assumptions and encourage thinking beyond what is comfortable. In essence, allies help a person see the landscape of possibility instead of the walls of limitation. Choosing allies requires discernment. Not every relationship will be supportive or constructive. Some may reinforce negative patterns, drain energy, or instill doubt. Seeking allies means intentionally surrounding oneself with individuals who embody the qualities one wishes to cultivate: integrity, ambition, resilience, and insight. These relationships should be mutually respectful, built on trust, and genuine interest in growth. In this environment, knowledge is shared freely, mistakes are met with guidance rather than judgment, and progress is celebrated rather than undermined. Allies are not shortcuts to success. They are catalysts, accelerators, and mirrors reflecting what is possible. Mentorship is one of the most powerful forms of allyship. A mentor is someone who has walked a path similar to the one you aspire to take and can offer practical guidance, encouragement, and perspective. They provide lessons that cannot be gleaned from books or online resources alone. Mentorship accelerates growth because it allows one to learn from experience rather than repeat mistakes. For those in poverty, mentors are often invaluable because they model resilience, discipline, and strategic thinking. They show that success is not an abstract concept reserved for others. It is attainable, step by step. Allies also offer emotional support, which is often overlooked but critically important. Poverty brings stress, uncertainty, and a sense of invisibility. Friends, peers, and family who provide genuine encouragement can sustain motivation when challenges feel overwhelming. They remind a person that they are not alone, that their effort matters, and that their goals are worthy. Emotional support strengthens resilience, enabling individuals to maintain focus and courage even in moments of doubt or hardship. In this sense, allies are not just companions. They are anchors, keeping one steady amidst the storms of life. Collaboration is another essential aspect of seeking allies. No one has all the answers, all the skills, or all the resources. By connecting with others, individuals can combine strengths to achieve goals that would be impossible alone. Collaboration fosters creativity, problem solving, and shared responsibility. It teaches humility, patience, and the value of listening. For someone emerging from poverty, learning to work effectively with others is not only practical, it is transformative. It shifts identity from one of scarcity and limitation to one of opportunity and contribution. Building alliances also requires reciprocity. Allies are most effective when relationships are two-sided. Offering help, encouragement, or insight in return strengthens bonds and creates networks of trust. These networks amplify individual effort, transforming one person's progress into collective advancement. Poverty may encourage self-preservation and inward focus, but embracing reciprocity fosters community, trust, and shared growth. The principle is simple: by lifting others, you are lifted as well. The courage to seek allies often involves vulnerability. It means admitting what you do not know, acknowledging struggles, and allowing others into your journey. Vulnerability can feel risky, especially for those accustomed to relying solely on themselves, but it is the gateway to connection. Allies respond not to weakness, but to honesty and authenticity. By opening up, a person invites guidance, encouragement, and insight, resources far more valuable than isolation ever provides. Ultimately, seeking allies is a strategic and courageous act. It is a conscious decision to step out of isolation, to expand one's network of support, and to engage with people who elevate rather than diminish. Allies offer guidance, perspective, encouragement, and collaboration. They help to reveal opportunities, strengthen resilience, and accelerate growth. For anyone seeking to rise above poverty, recognizing the power of connection is as important as discipline, awareness, or vision. No person builds lasting success alone. The path becomes not only possible but sustainable when walked with allies. In the end, the decision to seek allies transforms more than circumstances. It transforms identity. It reshapes how a person views themselves in relation to the world, teaching that growth is not a solitary struggle but a shared journey. It teaches that strength lies in both giving and receiving support, that courage includes asking for help, and that freedom is amplified when it is experienced alongside others. Isolation keeps the mind small and the world distant. Allies open the mind, expand horizons, and light the path toward a life that is not only survived but fully lived.